So deep within the heart of this dense wilderness, a lone monkey sat alert in the upper branches of a fig tree. His name was Taro. He was small, agile, and brave. But right now, none of those qualities mattered, because below him, winding slowly through the tall grass, was an orange and black striped hunter. He was the jungle's apex killer. Old, scarred from past fights, with eyes like molten gold and a hunger that went beyond food. This tiger didn't hunt to satisfy his rumbling stomach. He hunted because it was in his blood, because it was his way of dominating this world, proving that even the smallest misstep could cost a life. But in the early hours of this morning, he wasn't thinking about killing. Not yet, anyway. All he was thinking about was catching his breath and planning his next move. The truth was, he'd been stalking a deer for a long time, and though he hadn't gotten close enough for a kill, he had a plan. The deer would come back to this watering hole. He just needed to wait and pounce. So he waited, lying low in the tall grass, camouflaged by his coat, blending perfectly with the shadows around him. And if he could have seen what was happening above him, he might have realized that his hunt was about to take an unexpected turn. See, Taro the monkey was supposed to be with his troop, somewhere safe and secure, eating figs high above the forest floor. But unlike the others, Taro often found himself alone. They called him the lone wolf of the jungle, not because he liked being alone, but because his curiosity led him farther than the others. He climbed higher than they dared, listened more closely than they cared to, and saw things that made the other monkeys shake their heads and chatter nervously. Like one time when a storm hit the jungle, knocking a huge fig tree right onto the path below. Curiosity got the best of Taro, and he climbed down to see what was inside. The other monkeys, afraid of the dark and the unknown, stayed in the trees. But Taro found a baby bird with a broken wing. Instead of running away, he took the little guy back to his troop, and they fed him until he was strong enough to fly again. Or another time when Taro smelled something unusual wafting through the jungle. He followed his nose, eventually finding a patch of land where a group of humans were cooking dinner over an open fire. Fearful but fascinated, he watched from a distance until a little girl tossed a piece of fruit into the air and caught it with her hand. She must have seen him because she beckoned with a smile and held out a piece of sweet coconut. That day, Taro learned that not all humans were enemies, and that some were kind and gentle. Well, on this particular morning, Taro's curiosity was leading him once again. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but something seemed off, like the jungle was holding its breath. And as he swung from branch to branch, he began to notice the absence of sound. The jungle was eerily silent. No birds chirped, no leaves rustled, just the heavy humidity and the haunting stillness of a world waiting for something to happen. Then he saw it. Moving slowly below him in the tall grass was a large orange and black striped shape. Taro had seen this hunter before. In fact, the whole troop had. They had all witnessed his ferocious energy when he attacked a wild boar, bringing it down with swiftness and power. The sight of this predator sent shivers down the spines of every animal that crossed his path. He was known throughout the jungle as the phantom feline, and unlike other tigers who hunted out of necessity, this one did it just because he could. There was no hunger in his eyes, only dominance. But what was he doing here? Why was he so close to the fig trees? Then Taro noticed something else. The deer who regularly came to drink from the stream below the fig trees wasn't here. And suddenly it all made sense. The phantom had driven the deer away. He was stalking it, preparing to strike. Taro felt a chill, but there was no time to ponder why he wasn't scared. Not really. Hunting season was upon them. And in the jungle, everyone was either the hunter or the hunted. And right now, the phantom feline was gearing up for his kill. In the next moment, he would reveal himself. Then he would pounce. Then the jungle would ring with the screams of a dying animal. That's how it always went. But this time it wouldn't be so simple. You see, Taro had a secret weapon, something the phantom feline didn't know about, didn't understand. It was something powerful, primal, something that drove the jungle itself crazy. And it was all thanks to one little sound. To be honest, it wasn't really a sound at all. More like a feeling, a premonition, a sixth sense that warned animals of danger, telling them to run, to hide, to do whatever they could to stay alive. That's why when the phantom feline finally revealed himself, charging out of the tall grass and racing toward the terrified deer, a strange thing happened. It was like the jungle itself started screaming. Leaves shook, birds squawked, screeching sounds that echoed through the trees. Even the deer let out a shrill cry, desperate and mournful. But over all of it rose one sound above all others, loud, piercing, unmistakable. It was the alarm call, a warning that sent shivers down the spine of every living thing. And as Taro listened to that gut-wrenching cry, he understood. It was time to go. So he turned and ran, darting between the trees, leaping over vines and swinging from branch to branch. The phantom feline didn't chase. He never did. That wasn't how he worked. He was patient, calculating, willing to wait days if necessary to get what he wanted. But something was different this time. Maybe it was the insistent drumming of the cicadas, the insistent chirping of the crickets, or the piercing calls of the hornbills. Whatever it was, it seemed to drive him crazy. At first it was subtle. A twitch of his whiskers, a flash of irritation in his eyes, a low growl that rumbled in his chest. But as the sounds grew louder, his composure started to crack. He paced, he snarled, and he swatted at the trees, his claws ripping into the bark. Taro, meanwhile, kept going, moving as fast as he could through the dense foliage. He didn't dare look back. He didn't want to see the phantom feline gaining on him. Didn't want to see the hunter's frustrated expression. But after a while, he began to hear something else, the sound of the jungle calming down. The alarm call was fading, the leaves rustling softly, the bird song returning to normal. Slowly, hesitantly, he peeked over his shoulder. Below him, the phantom feline had stopped his furious pacing and was now staring up at the trees with a wild look in his eyes. The tiger was confused, disoriented, unable to comprehend the cacophony that surrounded him. Taro didn't know what had caused this sudden madness, but he was grateful for it nonetheless. It had given him a chance, however slim, to escape. So he kept going, climbing higher, trying to put as much distance between himself and the tiger as possible. As he disappeared into the thick canopy, the phantom feline let out a frustrated roar that echoed through the trees. But there was no reply. No mocking laughter, no triumphant screech. Only the sound of the jungle slowly returning to normal. Up in the trees, Taro was shaking. His heart pounded in his chest, his breath came in ragged gasps. But he didn't dare stop. Not yet. He didn't know if the phantom feline would change his mind, decide to chase after him. But as he climbed higher and higher, he realized something. The tiger wasn't following. And as he rounded a thick vine and came out into a clearing, he saw why. Below him, stretching as far as he could see, was a deep ravine. On the other side, he could hear the rush of water, the crash of rocks. There was no way to cross. For a moment, Taro was paralyzed with fear. What should he do? Should he jump? Would he survive the fall? Or should he turn back, face the phantom feline and hope for the best? But before he could make a decision, something caught his eye. Hanging from a branch on the other side of the ravine was a sturdy vine. It looked strong enough to hold his weight. All he had to do was swing across. But there was one problem. The vine was too short. He couldn't reach it. For a moment he hesitated, torn between two dangers. Then he made his choice. He leaped, throwing himself into the air, reaching out for the distant vine. His fingers brushed against it, grazed it, and for a fleeting moment he felt a surge of hope. But it was short-lived. His grip was too weak. He was too far away. He started to fall, tumbling through the air, his heart sinking as the ground rushed towards him. Then suddenly a pair of powerful paws hitched onto his leg, digging their claws into his flesh. The world twisted. The ground rushed up to meet him. When Taro opened his eyes, he saw the phantom feline staring down at him, his eyes gleaming with triumph. The tiger had decided to follow, and now he had Taro right where he wanted him, dangling from a vine suspended between life and death. With a flick of his tail, the tiger loosened his grip, giving Taro a final push. This time there was no saving grace, no last-minute rescue. Taro was falling. But as he plummeted towards the ground, A wild grin spread across his face. Here was his chance, his opportunity to escape the phantom feline forever. As he fell, he threw his arms out, bracing for impact. The ground rushed up to meet him, and for a split second, everything went silent. But instead of pain, Taro felt a jolt, a surge of adrenaline as he landed on something solid, something soft. He had landed on a pile of leaves. Adrenaline surged through him. He had survived. Panting, he scrambled out of the foliage, his eyes searching for the phantom feline. Surely the tiger had followed, ready to deliver the final blow. But there was no sign of the hunter. Only the sound of his own ragged breathing filled Taro's ears. Slowly, cautiously, he made his way to the edge of the leaf pile and peered over. Below him, the ravine was deep and dark. It looked impossible to climb out from the bottom. And suddenly, it hit him. The phantom feline had misjudged. He had thought Taro would land on rocks, maybe break a leg, maybe be too injured to run. But he had underestimated the little monkey's agility, his determination, his will to live. Taro had jumped and he had survived. The tiger was trapped. Overcome with relief and triumph, Taro let out a victorious screech that echoed through the trees. The jungle, sensing the shift in power, responded with a roar. The birds joined in, the leaves rustled in approval, and the very air vibrated with excitement. Taro had faced the phantom feline and he had won. As the sun filtered through the dense canopy, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor, Taro stood at the edge of the ravine, looking down at the spot where the tiger had fallen. He didn't gloat. He didn't revel in his victory. He simply stood there, awestruck by the events that had unfolded. He had stared death in the face, had danced with danger, and had emerged victorious. But it wasn't just about the fight. It was about what the fight had revealed, the strength that lay dormant within him, the courage that had blossomed in the face of fear. From that day forward, Taro was no longer just a small monkey with a curious spirit. He was Taro the Brave, the one who had faced the phantom feline and lived to tell the tale. His legend echoed through the trees, carried on the wings of the wind, whispered in the rustling leaves and sung by the birds. And as the jungle reveled in its hero, Taro knew that his adventure was far from over. The jungle was a vast, intricate place, filled with wonders, challenges, and stories waiting to be uncovered. And he, Taro the Brave, was ready to listen.